Welcome, everyone. This is the December 8th, 2020 webinar from AFP Orange County. Here is Catherine Spear, the 2020 chapter president.
A warm welcome to all of our chapter members and guests. Thank you for joining us for our December chapter meeting. Well, the year went quickly, didn't it, even though? I'm Catherine Spear, your chapter president, and on behalf of the chapter, we're very pleased to welcome our own board members, Haley Cooper and Jessica Hammond, who have invited a most excellent speaker panel to address today's conversation on diversity. I'm going to let Michelle Bignardi, our president-elect, tell you more about this program in just a few minutes. But first of all, I want to introduce our wonderful sponsor, Orange Door Consulting. And speaking on behalf of Orange Door, let me introduce Jeannie Flint.
Orange Door is delighted to be the sponsor of today's AFP webinar. We have three components in our fundraising work that we do, and one of them is fundraising. It makes sense. We do grant writing, we do outsourcing fundraising services for organizations that don't have a development team, event planning, sponsor, silent auction acquisition, and we also do Razor's Edge training and support. Marketing and communications goes hand in hand with fundraising, so we help develop marketing and communication plans. We develop social media marketing outreach. We provide newsletter, annual report design, content for your communications. And then we also help with websites, redesign and refresh. Strategic leadership is one of my actual work that I do for Orange Door. And I do any kind of business administration support, looking at infrastructure, building that for nonprofits. I love board training and development. It's called governance as leadership. CEO and strategic advising, coaching both staff and the development team, and then nonprofit mergers and acquisitions. And what I'm going to wrap this up, but how many nonprofit fund development people work with volunteers? Well, most all of you work with your boards, and they are volunteers. So when I work with a board and I get pushback of, oh no, I can't ask, or I don't feel comfortable asking, or, I try to relate to them that fundraising is a lot like church. And I say, if you go to church, they have no hesitancy. They ask, and then they ask, and then they ask again. They ask every time you go to church. They ask everyone. They don't just pick out the wealthy in the group of the church members. They look, they don't really care whether you are well-to-do, or they figure that everybody has something to give. And they're not afraid to ask for large amounts. If they're doing a capital campaign, they don't mind asking that we need this much money. And when you go to a church or any kind of faith-based organization, it's sort of expected that you as a church member are going to be contributing to the overall well-being of the mission of that faith-based organization. They also provide lots of opportunities and options. They're sometimes having a capital campaign, or they're doing mission work, and they ask for that particular campaign. Or you can give just to the church or the synagogue or the temple. And one of the critical things that boards need to understand, they always want the professionals to do the asking. And I say in faith-based organizations, I know I'm Catholic, the volunteers, the people that are actually not the clergy, are the ones that pass the basket. They're the ones that are doing it. And those are volunteers, just like the church members. And one of the best things that you can emulate from a faith-based organization is they build relationships. And going to a religious organization, you're building a sense of community. So when you're working with volunteers, if you just keep in mind, you're not asking them to do anything more than they probably do every Sunday. So I just like to give you a little tidbit of information as we end my presentation, but thank you so much for allowing Orange Door to be a part of your morning. Thank you.
And thank you, Jeannie, and thank you again, Orange Door. In a year of going virtual, the most frequently used new words were pivot and agility, describing the many rapid adjustments we all made in order to bring our fundraising programs in successfully. So, demonstrating great agility and pivoting weekly, the National Philanthropy Day Committee brought home a highly successful 2020 program, creating a One for the Ages video of the event and reaching our high target goal for fundraising. Thank you, Elizabeth Carrilla, Joan McBride, and the entire NPD committee. You were superstars. I'll turn the gavel over to our chapter vice president and president-elect, my partner today, Michelle Bignardi, to give our speaker introduction.
Thank you, Catherine. Today's program has been the work of the IDEA Committee. And when I say work, it really has been, because I know they've been working on this for the past at least 6 months. IDEA stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Access. And Haley Cooper and Jessica Hammond are going to do a deeper dive into that. So I am just going to introduce them, starting with Jessica, reading her bio here. Jessica Hammond is the Development Coordinator for Santa Ana College Foundation, serving students in one of the largest and oldest community colleges in Orange County. Her work at the SAC Foundation, she serves large and diverse student body and helps ensure that no student is denied the educational opportunities that they deserve due to lack of resources. She has served on the AFPOC board for 2 years and has been a member since 2014. She's going to be on the executive committee next year. She currently serves on the IDEA committee, and prior to working at Santa Ana College, she was in the development department at the Wood and Floor and Boys Town, California. That's Jessica. Haley is a certified fundraising executive and director of development at Giving Children Hope. She is passionate, impact-driven, experienced fundraising professional who seeks to help nonprofits achieve their mission and vision. She enjoys helping small and large nonprofits raise funds more efficiently. She specializes in obtaining private and public funding for local human service agencies that serve the homeless, youth, and the underserved. Haley is a co-founder of PG&J Foods, Inc., a nonprofit with the mission of eradicating severe malnutrition in Malawi, Africa. She's a very active member of the AFPOC board and chairs the IDEA committee. She also serves on the board of directors for Nonprofit Professionals Network of Orange County. And just a little note, both Jessica and Haley are new moms this year. And that's really extraordinary in being able to balance everything that they've done. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Haley and Jessica.
So thank you all for joining us today. We are super excited for this workshop. Like she said, it has been in the works with our committee, and we are so excited for our panelists. They're wonderful. We've had many discussions with them, and I think that you will walk away inspired from this conversation. Before we get started, Jessica's going to share our mission statement and goals for our IDEA committee and chapter as a whole.
The Association of Fundraising Professionals Orange County Chapter, AFPOC, defines diversity as the seeking and achieving of a broad representation of experiences, perspectives, opinions, and cultures. As a chapter, we do not discriminate on the basis of gender, religion, race, ethnicity, age, geography, abilities, sexual orientation, professional experience, and income. We encompass all of this as we take into account the composition of membership, board leadership, program presenters, independent contractors, and program content. We also have 2 goals. The chapter is leading the charge for all fundraisers to ensure our chapter and the sector stay committed to inclusion and diversity. And the second goal is to create a more equitable and diverse chapter that values all people.
Thank you for sharing those. Those are board-approved mission statements and goals that we are embracing as a whole, as a chapter. The next thing we're going to do is define what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean. AFP Global has a whole idea initiative. And so I took these definitions from them because as we are taking it from global down to our chapter. So I'm going to read them quick. AFP defines diversity as a core value. It is an inclusive concept encompassing, without limitation, race, color, ethnicity, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or identity, religion, nationality, age, economic class, educational level, language, physical mobility and ability, geography, and marital and parental status. The state of being diverse means having the broadest possible representation of individuals' experiences and perspectives in an all-encompassing terms. For equity, it means creating a level playing field for individuals or groups according to their respective needs, which may include equal treatment or treatment that is different but is considered equivalent in terms of rights, benefits, obligations, and opportunities. And I realize this slide I spelled wrong, but that happens. The ability of AFP to attract, retain, accommodate, and involve a range of diverse people who are valued, accepted, and comfortable at the international, national, regional, or local chapter level. So as a whole, as a chapter, we do embrace these definitions as well. So now I'm going to introduce our wonderful panelists. I am so excited for this conversation. We've had many over the last month, and I just know that you are going to be inspired by Raphael, Victoria, and Robin. So I'm going to read their bios quick. Raphael Durand is the founder and CEO of Dexpat Consulting, and I know you just told me that, but I probably butchered it, a firm that helps leaders and organizations to maximize performance, development, and business results in new and challenging situations. He is a leadership development and intercultural coach, human resources consultant, and leadership speaker. As a former corporate lawyer and senior HR executive, Raphael has over 35 years of experience developing both emerging and executive leaders in Fortune 200 global companies and nonprofit organizations. He has lived and worked in Mexico, Turkey, Chile, Brazil, and the United States, and he is fluent in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. Raphael believes in coaching as a co-active conversation, targeted at solving problems through discovery, awareness, and choice. He believes people are naturally creative, resourceful, whole, and capable of finding answers, taking action, recovering from mistakes, and learning from experience. Through coaching, Raphael encourages clients to reflect on their values, challenge assumptions, explore alternatives, set objectives, learn, and grow. Raphael received his executive coaching certification from the Columbia University Coaching Certification Program in 2014. He is also certified in several leadership assessment tools. When he's not leading people and inspiring the next generation of leaders, he works in Irvine, California, where he lives with Hannah, his lifelong wife. He enjoys exploring Southern California, bird watching, listening to music, and reading. And he has a few signature chalks that I would encourage you to, at the end, we'll share contact info. And I know that they are just as inspiring as he'll be talking about today. Next is Victoria Torres, who is also a board member and program co-chair for AFP in 2020. She serves as the Director of Community Impact at Samueli Foundation, overseeing the foundation's work as it relates to the city of Anaheim, including capacity building, community relations, project management, evaluation, and reporting. And today, she will be representing the nonprofit network of Orange County, which is formerly the Young Nonprofit Professional Network, as the board chair. She was born and raised in Orange County. She has volunteered and worked in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years. She is passionate about making connections that are strategic and meaningful with the intent of building strong relationships and partnerships. Skilled in nonprofit management, team building, facilitation, evaluation, and talent development. She graduated from the Cal State University of Fullerton with a bachelor's in human services and a master's degree in counseling. And last but not least, the wonderful Robin Sinclair, who is the executive director of Fieldstone Leadership Network of Orange County. Robin graduated with a degree in organizational management from Vanguard University, embarked upon a robust career in the nonprofit sector, holding executive positions at Share Ourselves, Habitat for Humanity Orange County, Boys Hope, Girls Hope, and CASA Youth Shelter. And in 2017, joined Fieldstone Leadership Network as executive director. Robin was an executive learning group participant and is a trained executive coach and mentor. In her role with Fieldstone, she is responsible for creating confidential space where nonprofit leaders can safely come together to learn from and share resources with one another through a compendium of professional development programs. She lives in Newport with her husband and rescue pup, Millie. She has 4 sons and 4 lovely daughter-in-laws, 6 granddaughters, 1 grandson, and a new baby due in January. Well, congratulations. All right, so we're going to get started with our panel discussion, and Jessica's going to help me facilitate. So we are just going to jump right in. Given the nature of this year, speak to the panelists, Robin, Raphael, and Victoria. Speak about your own experience or what you are hearing from your clientele about diversity and equity within your own organizations. Raphael, do you want to start us off?
Sure, Haley. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to be representing executive coaches of Orange County at this panel. And this is a very interesting question, particularly this year. In my experience and at Executive Coaches of Orange County, what we do, we provide with pro bono coaching to leaders in nonprofit organizations in the county, in Orange County. And so from interacting with my clients, I noticed that this year, actually pre-2020, if you will, the 2 main concepts when it came to diversity and inclusion were those two elements of the equation, diversity and inclusion. However, in 2020, the addition of the element of equity was really very strong in conversations with some of my clients. And they actually were facing some challenges when getting into conversations with their executive directors, or if they were executive directors, with their board members, trying to figure out how to incorporate that element of equity into the whole equation. And it's been an interesting conversation because as they try to respond to what the employees or even the constituents, the stakeholders they interact with, bring the topic to the table, is something that they were not ready in many cases to respond. So it's been that particular aspect of equity that was different from the previous past.
Thank you so much for sharing. Victoria, do you want to share what you've been hearing or about your own experiences within NPN?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm kind of here in my main capacity is to represent Orange County's Nonprofit Professionals Network, and as Haley shared, formerly Young Nonprofit Professionals Network. And so I think our name change, as you'll learn tomorrow if you're coming to our Reconnecting from Home event, in itself shows how we're trying to be more equitable. We went through a process where we actually did some little focus grouping of people and put out a survey, and that why in young nonprofit professionals was kind of keeping people away. People were asking, like, am I young enough, or what does young mean, or how does this pertain to me? I'm a nonprofit professional, but I'm curious, like, am I included in this why? And so we took the whole year to really reflect on that and ask ourselves, well, what do we mean by the why? And really, it's just new or emerging or new to the sector, or even young in spirit and vibrancy to our community. And so we made a really strategic decision. And as you see in our logo behind my, in my Zoom, we dropped the Y. And so we really dug deep this year, about that was kind of the beginning of our self-reflection on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is how are we keeping that diversity ingrained? And so the other reason for that is we don't want to be just for one particular piece of our nonprofit sector. So while there, I see the value in a chapter for fundraisers, and I know there's Grant Professionals Association and there's OC grant makers, and they're all in their groups for their particular skill set and learning. But we really also wanted a place where it was just everyone can come to mingle and to connect and to network, especially when you're new. When you're new to the sector, it's very overwhelming of like, well, where do I start? Like, I think I want to do fundraising. So do I join AFP? Or I think I might be a grant writer. Do I join GPA? Or what's this EC of OC thing? I don't know. What do I need a coach for? It can be overwhelming as a new person transitioning into a sector or changing job functions. And so we wanted to be very diverse and make our programming and our offering something that anyone can kind of step into and feel welcomed and not hindered by age. So that was our biggest thing that we had to reflect on is, does the age really matter? And it didn't, but we didn't realize how the name was affecting that. So so that's how our group kind of reflected on that. And so that's just one element. But then I wanted to also add, as a funder, sitting with my grantees, as you were asking the question and Raphael was talking, I did see a lot, I heard a lot of questions about diversity, equity, inclusion, particularly around boards. And I can't, say what everyone did just because nobody really knew what to do. And I think it was kind of an interesting space where some people thought, I think they felt like they had to put more emphasis and there was more pressure in it than before. And so there was a little bit of confusion and like, where do I start? And so all I could do, as a funder is direct people to resources, direct people to AFP, direct people to OC Human Relations, direct people to, those who do know, because I'm not an expert, but I can share the things that people have been concerned about and then try and figure out how to make those connections from there.
Yeah, I know it's been a great part to be a part of the whole rebranding of NPN and that the deep dive that the organization did into how to really encompass all nonprofit professionals within the sector. Robin, do you want to share a little bit about what you've been hearing from the leaders at Fieldstone?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. Good morning, everybody. I love hearing what you said, Victoria, because I personally am at that place where I'm sometimes showing up to meetings and I think, am I still relevant? I'm not the 35-year-old emerging leader. I've been doing this for a long, long time. And I have been on the receiving end of feeling like I don't feel like I belong. And I think all of us suffer from some version of imposter syndrome anyway. And people always think that imposter syndrome is only for new leaders. And I'll tell you, it happens when you're in your 60s as well, because we are constantly learning. So, at Fieldstone, we bring leaders together. We don't teach people how to be leaders because you're already a leader. You wouldn't want to be part of the program. But what we do is we really try to help you hone your skills. And so that imposter syndrome is such an important factor because people come to a table or come to an organization and we want them to feel like they are contributing to the vision. And whether it's age or the color of your skin or your gender, whatever it might be, there's so much insecurity around what we carry all the time. And so what we try to do is really dispel that and let everybody know, hey, we are all in this together. So if we're just mindful of that and mindful of looking around the table and seeing, who is sitting at the table and how can I make them feel more comfortable so that we can all really have a shared vision. And, we've talked about being mission driven, but I think being vision driven is more important than anything. So it's just a matter of bringing the right people to that table to help you to grow your organization or grow your team. So I see that personally. I see that with Fieldstone in our learning groups. We try really hard to create a cohort where it's very diverse. Oftentimes we'll get people that will say, oh, I thought the learning group would be, all people in the, affordable housing space. And we deliberately put people in there from different areas in the sector so that they learn from one another. So we have people from the arts and people from animal welfare and people from, domestic violence. And we bring the arts and all together, and everybody learns so much from one another. So you'll see somebody in their 20s, you'll see somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s. We've had people in their 70s in there. Which to me is just beautiful, because again, then you're all kind of coming together and you're seeing where they're coming from. And again, when you get in that imposter syndrome conversation, you realize, wow, somebody that's in their 70s is feeling the same insecurity that I am. And that is just so liberating. So we deliberately put groups together. We even deliberately put groups together with organizations that have different budgets, because that can be very intimidating. When I went through the learning group in 2008, I was with an organization. We had, I think, a $720,000 budget right at the start of the Great Recession. I mean, it was just, I thought, are we even going to have a golf tournament? It was just terrifying. And I remember somebody in my learning group was working at the time with a $3 million budget. And I mean, you talk about the imposter syndrome. I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to find out that I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. And I learned so much from him, and I know he learned so much from me. And that's the point. We all can learn from one another. So we just have to kind of take off the labels and help ourselves to be less insecure. And so our goal is just to bring those people together to really learn from one another and empower one another.
YNPN was founded by Rebecca Tankersley. She's now the executive director of Lion's Heart. And I think even in her story of founding YNPN is actually there's a national YNPN, so we're an affiliate. But I think, in moments of, DEI, this is where people tend to start, grassroots efforts, because they're noticing that there's something missing. And I think that's where YNPN happened 7 years ago, that there wasn't a place for that young nonprofit professional growing and kind of embarking, and not in terms of leadership groups, but just like a place to go, a place to meet other like-minded young professionals or new to the sector. And so I think our history is embedded in DEI, of trying to have a place that is more diverse and equitable and inclusive of all nonprofit professionals. And for past 5-6 years, it did that through happy hour events or just through little get-togethers. So just are in the nature of our organization, it's rooted in this desire to be diverse and more equitable and more inclusive. And I don't think, and it's kind of, I guess, gets into your next question, Haley, of people sometimes don't realize that that's also DEI. I think people hear DEI and just think race or skin color. And I always lean into experience, skill set, mindset, background. Those are all things that also add to the components of DEI. It's about, yes, asking me to be a part of the conversation, but then actually really listening to what I have to offer and bring to the conversation. And that's why I loved that, part of this panel was this is an AFP event, but you've got executive coaches, you've got Fieldstone. Even in this event, it's a very diverse way of going about asking and talking about DEI versus, you could have went the route of a diverse panel of fundraisers, right? Or a diverse panel of grant writers. But instead, it was a diverse panel of, people working with leaders and future leaders. So I think that's a great example of changing it up. So I think DEI for me is about looking at this looking at what's in front of me and seeing how it's normally done and pausing and asking, okay, how can I flip it over and do it totally different? Because a lot of what I've been learning through my DEI experience and self-reflection is that where we get stuck into traditions and patterns that we don't even realize we're doing, right? Those unconscious biases, because the generation before us did it, or because that's just how it's always been done. And so in order to really, break through and change things up, it's to really pause and just take a moment to say, are we doing this because this is how we've always done it? Or are we doing this because this is the way it needs to be done? And if the answer is, the first, well, then how can you change it? How can you just make it, completely different? So, yeah, there.
Victoria, I appreciate.
Go ahead, Jessica.
No, you go ahead, Rafa.
Along the same lines, I think that, at least in my experience, some of the common misconceptions along the diversity, equity, and inclusion comes from making assumptions. And sometimes we believe that because somebody belongs to a minority group or the particular ethnicity or a particular gender, that person shares most of the characteristics of that group. So in organizations, when organizations approach this type of diversity and inclusion challenges from a position of making assumptions, then I have seen that some of the groups that they are actually trying to help and protect or actually include get alienated because leaders don't understand the nuances that exist within those particular minority groups or diverse entities. So an example of this is, in my experience, I have come to work with, for example, Latinos that don't feel that they are that they should be part of an ethnic group treated separately from the rest of the organization. I have come to work with women who don't believe that there should be a particular policy or system in the organization to help them or to treat them differently. So these common misconceptions get in the way for the organization to be truly effective in addressing what they are actually trying to, the problems that they are trying to solve.
Victoria and Raphael, I think you guys are both really helping us segue into the second question, which is awesome. I did want to pause and just speak briefly to AFP Orange County and sort of what we've done this year to advance diversity and equity. As Michelle mentioned, Haley and I were co-chairs of the IDEA committee this year, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And AFP Orange County, has existed for several decades now. And I know at least for the several past few years in a row, we've received the Friends of Diversity designation. So, we have to meet certain criteria and sort of, we get the national designation. But Haley and I both really felt, and I think our board felt as a whole, that what does that mean? And is that good enough, for us as a chapter? And so we really took it upon the IDEA committee to make sure that we really looked at the IDEA diversity, mission statement here and rewrote it as it made sense for our chapter, as well as the values. So I just want to say that as a whole, AFP Orange County really took a deep dive this year, making sure that we weren't just checking off boxes and sort of resting on our laurels. As I said, the chapter's been around for a while now. We really wanted to look at what DEI means to us as a chapter. And again, I think Victoria and Raphael, you're really leading into it really well, but diversity and equity and inclusion means so many different things to so many groups. So for instance, for AFP Orange County, we're primarily female. So part of our equity work the year was to make sure that we give a scholarship for membership, and we included a male as one of the scholarship recipients for that scholarship. So I just wanted to add the AFP Orange County lens to this question. And then, as I said, I think we're really sort of have started the conversation, but we'll move on to the second question, which is what, in your experiences, are the common misconceptions about diversity and equity? I don't know if Robin, if you want to sort of kick off this question.
Sure. I remember when Haley called me to ask me to be on the panel, I said, when I think of diversity and equity, I do think of race. I think of gender. I think of what I thought of. And I thought, I don't know that we have been that mindful about that, because, in my experience, we're not just box checkers. I feel like when you're a box checker, you're just focusing on the mission. You're really just focusing on what you do. And what you do is what you do. And you sometimes do what you've always done. And you do what you've always done with the people that have always done it. And I think that's when you kind of fall into that trap. And so I really try to shift my mindset to, again, be more vision focused, speaking vision into what I do. And when you're constantly thinking ahead, you don't check those boxes, because then you're just finding the most amazing people to come help you to reach your vision. I have a quote that I love. I'm just going to read real quick. Action without vision is only passing the time. Vision without action is merely daydreaming, but vision with action can change the world, by Nelson Mandela. And I love that quote so much, because I really feel that when you are speaking vision to your organization, to your volunteers, to your funders, to your grantors, to your board, all the pieces are going to come together. You're going to have a very diverse board. You're going to have a diverse volunteer base. You're going to have a diverse funding base, because it's exciting and you're going to bring the right people together. And then you don't fall back into that trap of, like I said, doing what you've always done with the people that have always done it. So for me, I really try hard to not get where I've always been, but where we could be.
I love that. It's kind of start with your why, really. It's
exactly
that brings the right, people, attracts the right people, and makes sure that you're sort of on the right path. And I think that's one thing personally I've learned this year too, is we can all always do better in this area. And so it's easy to think, oh, well, we've arrived, or we've talked about checking the boxes, but we're really on the path to make sure that we're always doing better when it comes to DEI. So I love that, Robin. Raphael and Victor, or Raphael, did you want to add more to this question a little bit more?
Well, in terms of common misconceptions, also I have coached organizations where they don't really they're having a hard time to differentiate between diversity and inclusion. So they think, or leaders think, that just because they have a statement that they say that they don't discriminate and they are actually open and transparent, and that they are actually just checking the box. And when they realize that the way people feel in their organizations, in terms of the organization not doing enough, that's when the concept of equity and inclusion comes to play. And so I sometimes use this analogy of a party. So diversity is like, you invite people to come to your party. And then inclusion is you allow everybody to dance, not just part of the guests. And equity is you actually set in the rules of the party up front, so that everybody knows that what the party is about and what the rules are about, but also the rules need to meet the criteria of being diverse and inclusive. So that's a little bit of what I have experienced when it comes to these common misconceptions, and how I try to help the clients of executive coaches of Orange County to make sense of the differences between the concepts and how they can actually materialize in real life.
I think that's a great point, that sometimes maybe we are not clear about what each of these terms mean and terminology. And I think I love your explanation and way of sort of differentiating between the different each one. Victoria, did you want to add to this question as well?
Yeah, as Rafael was talking a little earlier, he mentioned, making assumptions about a particular group or assumptions about a person because of how they look or, what they may stand for. And I think it's important to not judge that, because I know I personally have been placed in situations where I'm asked to be a part of the Hispanic something group, or something with Latinos, and I kind of just pause, like, okay, and I've given the candid question back, like, well, why me? And I have to say, there's been some awkward moments where the person inviting didn't have anything else beyond what the obvious was, and so that's hard, as from a personal standpoint. Be ready. I mean, if that is the judgment you're making, that you want me to be on a group because I am Hispanic or Latino, be prepared for something more than just that, to say, I mean, I have a lot more to offer than just, the color of my skin. And so, and you may want to get to know the person's values and beliefs on the thing you're asking them to be a part of, because just because I am Hispanic or Latino does not mean I hold all those values and systems. And, I didn't grow up first generation, or I didn't grow up a certain way. And so you don't know that I may or may not hold those values. And so I've personally been in those moments. And so I think those are common misconceptions about trying to make your organization or your board or whatever diverse, that it shouldn't just be about that. And so with OCNPN, we really want to make sure that I think our common misconception in the nonprofit sector that we're trying to break through is that we're not valued, or, well, I don't want to say valued. I think what we're trying to address is supporting nonprofit professionals for their success and for meaningful change, to make meaningful change in the community. And, the one way to do that is by lifting up our professional development and our skills. And so we want to break through the misconception that, I don't know, millennials are just tech savvy, or the young nonprofit professional is not ready to take on the work that people have built up, in the nonprofit sector. And so we want to dispel that. We want to invite people in, and we want to give them an experience that's going to teach them and prepare them for their work as a nonprofit professional. And so, so I take my experiences as being a young nonprofit professional and putting that into our chapter. So whatever experiences I've had in this work or in other work, I want to make sure that I don't make those same mistakes to the generation coming in, because we learn from one another. There are things that I've taken on, good and bad beliefs from people older than me, and I have to decipher, was that right or wrong? And I don't know until sometimes I've tried. So I think those are important. Our experiences are very, very important to consider when we think about DEI.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point of, as even if, board members or things like that, like, yes, some people feel they need to check off the box because a foundation or an organization is asking them to have a diverse board. But if you're just putting someone on a board to check off that box, that doesn't mean anything. You have to understand their values and how they align with your mission so that they can help you achieve it and bring their experiences and their background and add value to what you are doing. So it's more than just the color of your skin or the age or gender. There's a lot more to it and a lot more that people can add. So I think you make a good, that you got to do a little bit deeper dive than the surface level. I also think with MPN and EC of OC and Robin, you made a good point of, you get people in a group from all different sectors. And, especially with MPN, like I'm a fundraiser and I have to often remember that there's program, there's marketing. And, I'm so streamlined with AFP that I forget that there's people outside of that and there's people outside of human services. But I think in order to solve hard problems, we need diverse perspectives. We need multiple people that can add value and bring those perspectives into the room because we, like I said, we often get so focused on what we're used to that we need outside perspective to be able to help us solve that problem.
Can I add something to that, Haley? We deliberately bring people, like you just said, the program people and volunteer and COOs together in groups. And what I have found is it just increases the empathy so much when you have to go into a situation at your organization. Oftentimes you get in your silo and you it's sort of like the analogy of, when you were in school and you thought, gosh, does the math teacher forget that I also have English and I have history, but each teacher thinks that theirs is the most important. And we tend to do that when we're in a role. We think, oh, well, if there's no program, there's no organization. And then the fundraiser might say, well, if there's no funding, there's no organization. And you realize it's this beautiful puzzle that all comes together. And only when you recognize and value the different roles that everybody plays can you really put that puzzle together. So I think it just creates such a level of empathy. And we find that at the end of our 6-month cohort that people will say, I had no idea the challenges that the development people had, or I had no idea that the program people went through that. And that to me is just, it's so critically important and such a common misconception, moving into an organization thinking that yours is the only one that really matters. So I think it just creates this incredible level of empathy.
And I think even within the same field, so for instance, with AFP Orange County, we are mostly all fundraisers. Let's not forget that there's also a lack of diversity, or there can be with economically. So a lot of the members of our chapter for a long time were, CEOs or executive directors, higher level executives who could afford the chapter membership and pay for each luncheon. And we really wanted to focus this year and make sure to include in our mission statement, that members from all different economic backgrounds could be part of the chapter and as Raphael said, feel welcome, not just invited to the party, but would dance with us as well. It can go so far and so deep. So even within the same sector, same field, I should say, Haley and I have found that there is such a huge diversity just within our chapter, and we want to make sure that we're all really included. So we did, like I mentioned, we did have scholarships to include maybe someone who traditionally wouldn't be able to join AFP Orange County, and we have floated some more ideas in the future about how to even further that and lessen the gap.
All of you are leaders, but because there's a bunch of fundraisers in the room, we wanted to phrase this question as both fundraisers and leaders, because I know there are both in the room. You could be both at one time. As a fundraiser or leader, what can you commit today to integrate a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens in your work? So it sounds like all of you are already super committed to this, but what's one insight that you can offer to everyone listening?
I'll start, and then if you don't mind. We have a piece on diversity on our website, but what I really want to do moving forward is add implicit bias and some cultural bias to our curriculum next year, so that all the leaders will have that in their curriculum. So I'm looking forward to introducing that, because that is something that we talk about, but it's not built in. So that is one area where we are going to commit. We have a reading group, a leadership reading group. We used to call it a book club, but we thought people had a hard time leaving work in the middle of the day and saying, I'm going to book club. So we changed it to leadership reading group, and we've moved to Zoom. But we read fiction, nonfiction, and trade books, and we all read through the lens of leadership. And we have, in the last, I'd say 4 books have all been around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's been really incredible. And the goal of our reading groups is that we can teach you, and we have a professional facilitator that works with us, but the goal of the reading group is to empower each leader so that they can then take that skill set and take it back to their work so that they can do it. So we had one actually at Fieldstone this summer, and we had an incredibly successful reading group with our office that, I work with these people every day, but everybody, we share space. So there are some financial people, there's, lots of different people, but we read a book on race, and it was just powerful. And my goal is that every organization will have a reading group. And if you can, maybe one book out of the 12 that you read is around diversity, you'll at least have moved that needle. The other one we've done is we have surveyed our people are in the network to ask them, who are you serving, to kind of get more of an idea of the diversity of the clientele that is served. But then it's an opportunity for us to also look at our leaders and just see, who are we working with? And, you hear people say, well, I want my board to look like the clients that we serve. That isn't always the case, but that is something at least to be aware of, to kind of, again, move that needle in that direction. I see that Marty Dutch is on the call. Hi, Marty. Marty recently did a Strengths Finders workshop with our leadership, which was amazing. They loved it, and they want more. And just so to learn about yourself and how you relate to others is another step in the right direction. So any kind of assessment that you can do with your team, any kind of reading group that you can do, anything to kind of expand your knowledge, to just kind of get out of what you've always been doing, I think is something that we can work towards.
Yeah, I definitely think that's great, and some out of the box thinking of ways to, the assessment and the reading groups that can really add value. Mm-hmm. Raphael, were you going to go next?
Yes, thank you. Thinking on approaches going forward towards integrating diversity and inclusion in organizations, in our case, coaching leaders in nonprofit organizations, what comes to mind is our conversations that we started to have when we encourage the nonprofit leaders to engage in difficult conversations with their leadership and also their board members, geared towards getting clarity on how the organization are going to make their mission and values a living document. And this is a great opportunity for them to do it. So when it comes to DE&I, the questions that sometimes I ask to my coaching clients are, so why do you want to embrace diversity as an organization? And what's in it for the leadership? What's in it for the employees? What's in it for the community? But once they have clarity in terms of the answer to that question, then the next question is, what are you planning to do to get the benefit of a diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization to achieve your mission? So trying to help them connect that theoretical concept of being diverse and inclusive and equitable to how does that play into the organization to achieve its mission and to live its values. So connecting those dots is what make these leaders more able and capable, and in many cases willing to engage in those difficult conversations that for some time they have been pretty much avoiding or ignoring.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Victoria, do you want to chime in? And then we'll go to the breakout rooms.
Yeah, no, I love that you asked this question. So I will tell you, as a leader in the nonprofit community, first of all, it's a unique thing for me to even say that, because for so long I've always been on the hearing end, the listening end of these panels. And so I think, I'm very honored to be in this position. And when I was asked to take the role of board chair for OCNPN, I knew that would be a big step for me personally. And it's so ironic that it happened during COVID. So much has happened during COVID for me. And as a leader in this space, I am feeling more called to it, to address it and to be a part of it. I don't know what that looks like, though. I make no claims that I am the expert or that I can crack this code, but I do know that part of the reason why I said yes to OCNPN was because of this. I didn't coin it as DEI, but part of the reason is because I did want a place. I did see that there needed to be a place for us as young, new, emerging, or new to the sector professionals to just get started. And so I'm committing as part of, the board chair of OCNPN to be very inclusive. You need no experience to be a part of our organization or to come to an event or to be a volunteer or to there's no application process. There's no membership fee. It's really just about if you are trying to figure out what the nonprofit sector is about, just come say hi, come to an event, come learn. So that right there is the starting point of I think being equitable and bringing diversity to a room is not putting any barriers to it's mainly for you. Anyone can come, but it's mainly for fundraisers or mainly for grant writers. And we want to then be kind of that pathway to help bridge the next step. So if there's a place where all nonprofit professionals can go to just get all the information and then be coached to say, hey, I think you should go to Fieldstone. I think you should connect with Robin because you're ready for this. Or, hey, you're starting to go down the path of fundraising. Here's AFP, head this way. Or, oh, you're a new manager or a new supervisor. I think you need a coach. Let's get you over to Executive Coaches of Orange County. And right now there was really no place, for that per se. It was kind of just, here's all the information and figure it out yourself. And so that's my commitment, is to just be a place that OCNPN is a place where you can just start and then see where it goes. And then on another level for fundraisers, I know you said there are fundraisers in the room. I really would love, and this is also a personal mission of mine I guess it could be in DEI, is really bridging the fundraising and programming groups together. And Robin, you alluded to this too, how there's just magic in the room when you have multiple levels or multiple departments, I guess, in the room. And I've been on the program side, and then I've been on the fundraising side, and now I feel blessed to be on the funder side. And I would really love to increase that understanding and empathy and knowledge amongst the three now. I feel fortunate to have kind of helped bridge, fundraising and program. And now my commitment as a leader on the funder side is to really start more of those conversations of, all three of those. I teach at Cal State Fullerton and I teach program design and proposal writing. But let me tell you, and they're human services professionals. I make sure that they understand how this fits into their world of delivering services. Because a lot of times they're just, I'm never going to raise money or I'm never going to write a grant, so I don't need to worry about this. But I make sure I push and ingrain in them that, yes, the fundraising affects your job. It affects your ability to do good work. And I'm always making sure that I, prepare the next generation to understand how nonprofits work. And so to me, that's just all in, kind of helping level the playing field of knowledge. There's diversity, equity, inclusion also in knowledge and education. So that's my commitment. And I just thank you guys for, being a part of it with me. So Raphael, Robin, it's fun to be in this space with you.
Yes, thank you both. So all three of you for sharing and for your commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. It's really inspiring. And, I think you offered really tangible ways, not daunting ways, because I think, when you think of diversity, equity, inclusion, it can be daunting, but you offered tangible ways that we can go and take back to our organization and implement and really think about within ourselves. And like you said, Raphael, how yes, you got to look at the why and then how it can help your organization and mission as a whole. So next, we're going to do our breakout room in terms of talking about, diverse perspectives and thinking things differently. And thank you to one of our committee members, Kay, for suggesting this game. So I'm going to show the picture, and then if you want to type in the chat box what you see. All right, I see an elegantly dressed young woman, a lady with a feather in her hair, a young woman, old woman, woman with a hat, woman with a fur coat. All right, well, I hope that you had some good discussions in your breakout rooms. If Jessica, Raphael, Victoria, and Robin, and myself, we will share briefly some key takeaways from our discussions. So I guess I can start. I had one person from Goodwill, another from who used to work at St. Joseph Hospital. And at Goodwill, they have started a whole task force surrounding this. And really, they have 6 people on their task force that are all women. And so how do you engage, their staff is diverse, but how do you engage people on their staff? And so what they're going to start with is doing a survey to get really a baseline, and then set tangible action items from that survey. And then the Shonda from who used to work at St. Joseph made a really good point of how it starts from the top down. Your board and your leadership needs to buy into this to be able to have it trickle into your organization. If your board or your leadership does not believe in this, it's really hard to get your staff on board. So they need to be able to take ownership of it. And they had their board development committee focus on this, and really focus on what they want their organization to look like, and then who needs to be at that table. And so those are the key takeaways from my group. Jessica, do you want to share?
Yeah, I feel like we could have talked all day about this topic, and we had a great breakout room. Just one thing I'll share, since I know we're kind of running short on time. We talked about building trust as a team prior to having these conversations, and I think that's really important. Laval mentioned that at his work they read 5 dysfunctions of a team, and so they all started off with that base. I also want to mention that Cushbender said that at OC Human Relations they're doing a lot of work and workshops around this. So I can't wait to stay tuned and hear more about what they're doing at their organization. Sounds really great.
Victoria, do you want to share?
Sure. So first, everyone just said that they really appreciated the space to just have the conversation and start the conversation, and bring it to light, especially with fundraisers, just a starting place. So that was shared. And then I had some consultants in the group, and then university and a nonprofit. And one idea that was brought up is there's a group reading, kind of like book club. They're reading White Fragility, and there's some good conversation coming out of that. And then again, a top-down approach. There's one organization using very much the top-down leadership and kind of sharing those things down. And then there was one other, and then this idea or conversation around, groups and specialized groups around just whether it's minority groups or women, or just having a safe place to go and talk about their thoughts and values and feelings while this is going on. And I know I had kind of shared that, organically, we all need a place. We all need a space to feel safe to just kind of vent and share what we need so that it doesn't come out the wrong way. And I know for me personally, after I had my first child, it was really helpful to just be around moms, working moms, to kind of just share what was going on and feel that safety. And so, again, in the spirit of DEI, not being just about race, but it could also just be about a personal chapter in your life. And so we talked about, like, how do you find those groups, or how do you just create them on your own, to just have a place to talk, about what's going on. So yeah, it was a really good conversation.
Thank you for sharing those insights. And as we talk about these key takeaways, if you are a member of AFP, AFP Global has a great resource on this topic and a number of initiatives that they are offering. And I know, I'm sure that Fieldstone and UC of OC and NPN will have a bunch of resources as well. So we'll kind of put together an email to send as a follow-up to share those resources with you, so that you have access to those as well. Raphael, do you want to share some insight?
Thank you, Haley. Yeah, we actually started by making meaning of the exercise of the young lady, old lady. And so it was a single reality, look at it from different perspectives. So it was a really very good example on how the diversity, or a diversity approach, works towards bringing all different opinions and ways of looking at things, and multiplying the result by just focusing on that particular image. Then on the resources side, we identified training as a potential need for creating spaces, or setting up the organization to talk about it with information. Then the availability of forums for the underrepresented population have a space to express themselves and to talk. The buy-in from senior leadership was also critical in our opinion, but also along the lines of having metrics to measure progress in the organization. When it comes to conversations, well, the participants in my group said that not much conversations about diversity, inclusion, and equity are going on in many organizations. So, however, they are planning to address with a broader perspective, getting into the topic and having those conversations in their groups. Then challenges, mostly we talk about the challenge of not falling in the trap of the check on the box syndrome, not just moving into having conversations on diversity, inclusion, and equity just because there's pressure to do it, but to really connect with the mission, the values, and the principles of the organization to make them live.
Wow, those are all great key takeaways. And someone brought to light, thank you for addressing the multiple correct perspectives in your group. I think that's a valuable takeaway. Robin, do you want to wrap us up with some key takeaways from your group?
Sure. It's a great group. We had some great conversation. The first one was just, again, the importance of creating that safe space, that if you don't have that safe space, you're not going to have the trust to share and try new things. So I think that was, we identified that was a critical piece. How difficult it is to get everybody on the same page. Everybody comes at it from a different perspective, and to make it a priority for everybody, how do you do that? And again, you can't make anybody do anything. So you have to create that environment. Needing a good starting point, asking your group, what is your objective? What is your vision? Again, speaking to that vision is so important. Catherine suggests, I love this, go to graciousness and courtesy. Can we invite you in? And that might be a better approach instead of this is what we're going to be doing and you're all going to join and you're all going to enjoy and you're all going to get something out of that. So that was my personal takeaway, is just, can we invite you in and what does that look like? And then we shared the challenge of, having this part of your culture, and how do you, that it is increasingly, it's difficult to have these difficult conversations with some people that don't see it as a priority. So again, we talked about bringing in outside resources. So we also talked about Orange County Human Relations, and that's what they do. I mean, we've had them come to Fieldstone and do some presentations for us. That's their expertise. And so if you're having conversations with your board or with your senior staff, it's highly recommended to call them, and that's what they love to do, and they're good at it. And they come in and they have those conversations, sometimes having it from a third party. They can share best practices, what goes on out there. So it's not coming from you or not coming from any particular person in your organization. So call in your resources, and I put their organization link in the chat. It's a great group. Thank you.
I feel like we could have this conversation all day, but to be mindful of time, I know we're running a little late. We're going to wrap up, but one of the things that we are committed to doing is carrying on this conversation into 2021. And I'm so honored and thankful to be in the room with Robin, Raphael, Victoria, and Jessica, and everyone else in this room. Thank you so much for joining us and for having this initiating this conversation in this space. We are so grateful for you, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you all, and we extend our very warm appreciation again to Haley Cooper, Jessica Hammond, and Victoria Torres, our wonderful board members, to Raphael Durand, Robin Sinclair, and Jeannie Flint, and Orange Doors. So thank you, our panelists, thank you, our board members, and thank you, our sponsor, for our wonderful presentation today. As a reminder to our illustrious and appreciated board members, our board meeting will start promptly at 1:30 this afternoon. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day out there.